The barn was cleaner than it had been in 20 years, but it was the cleanliness of a skeleton picked dry. Without the constant traffic of clients, the aisles were swept to a pristine, unnatural dustlessness. Dex stood in the center aisle, rasping the hoof of one of the few remaining school horses. He worked with a rhythmic, angry intensity, his jaw set tight. Amy Fleming stormed into the barn, her boots striking the concrete with frantic energy. She held a crumpled piece of paper, a printout of the county land registry for the Ridge property. Her hair was messy, pulled back in a hasty ponytail that was already coming loose, and her eyes had the feverish glint of someone who hadn't slept in 48 hours.
It's a shell company, Obsidian Holdings. I looked it up. It traces back to a P.O. box in Calgary.
Dex lowered the hoof, wiping his hands on his jeans. He looked at the paper, then at Amy. She looked like she was unraveling. The obsession with the neighbor, the mysterious woman Mrs. Gagan had mentioned, was consuming her. Amy, maybe you're digging too deep into the wrong hole.
Wrong hole? Dex? She knew about the insurance. She knew about the mortgage. It's someone who knows too much about us from inside. And I'm gonna find her. I need you to take the truck tonight. Park on the service road behind the ridge. Just watch. If a car comes up there, I want the license plate.
Dex looked at her, frustration bubbling in his chest. He wanted to shake her. He wanted to tell her that she was chasing a phantom, while the real threat was sitting in her kitchen, drinking coffee. He knew Nathan Price was bad news. Dex knew Nathan was a vulture in a bespoke suit, but he couldn't say it. Not now. He looked at Amy's trembling hands. She was hanging by a thread. Nathan was the one driving her to the hospital. Nathan was the one handling the legal threats. If Dex told her, "Your boyfriend is the devil," she wouldn't believe him. She would snap. Or worse, she would confront Nathan without proof and get crushed. Dex didn't know how Nathan was doing it, but he knew the smell of sulfur when it was in the room. "I can watch the road, Amy." "But are you sure it's an outsider? Information like that, insurance lapses, that usually comes from someone close." Amy froze. Her eyes darkened.
You think it's Lou?
Dex blinked. That wasn't what he meant at all. "No, Amy, it's definitely not Lou. She's Burr's."
She's the only other person who's from the inside and knows too much about us, Dex. And she's furious with me. Maybe she's trying to force me to shut this place. Maybe she thinks if she burns it down, I'll have to let her take over.
Dex bit his tongue so hard he tasted copper. The manipulation was perfect. Nathan had isolated her so completely that she was suspecting her own blood while the predator held her hand. Dex wanted to scream. "It's him. It's the guy buying you dinner." But he saw the defensive set of her shoulders. She needed Nathan right now. Taking him away without absolute proof would be cruel. "Amy, if it's about you talking about Lou like this, then I'm sorry, I can't help you. I don't like getting into family feuds."
No. I'm sorry for saying all this. It's just, I'm becoming paranoid as days pass by. I suspect her. I know I shouldn't think of her like this, but still.
The sound of the engine cut through the conversation. It wasn't the rattle of a ranch truck. It was the smooth, expensive purr of Nathan's sedan. Amy's posture shifted instantly. The frantic investigator vanished, replaced by the exhausted, grieving granddaughter.
That's Nathan. He's taking me to the hospital.
She grabbed the paper, stuffing it into her pocket. She looked at Dex with pleading eyes.
Just watch the road, Dex. Please. Find me the woman.
Dex nodded slowly, defeated. "A watch." Amy turned and walked out into the gray light. Dex watched her go, feeling a pit form in his stomach. She was walking straight into the lion's den, and she was grateful for the ride. The drive to the hospital had become a ritual, a grim procession of three. Nathan drove with casual, one-handed confidence. his eyes occasionally flicking to the rearview mirror to check on Lindy. Amy sat in the passenger seat, her head resting against the cool glass of the window, watching the telephone poles whip by. Lindy was in the back, small and silent. She had a lot going on in her small mind. Although she had seen her great-grandpa doing fine, but the tension never goes away. Nathan kept his voice low, soothing, the perfect pitch of supportive partner.
I spoke to the bank manager this morning, Amy. I managed to get them to hold off on the demand letter for another week.
Amy didn't lift her head.
Thank you.
It wasn't easy. They're hearing things. The rumors about the empty barn are spreading fast.
I have a plan. I'm going to fix it.
I know you are, but Amy, if it gets to be too much, I can bridge the loan. A personal loan, no banks. Just me helping you.
Amy closed her eyes. It was tempting. It was so incredibly tempting to just sign a paper and make the fear go away, but Jack's voice was in her head. Bartlett's don't take charity. We work.
Not yet. I can still turn it around.
Nathan smiled, a small, tight expression that didn't reach his eyes.
Of course, I admire your spirit.
He turned the car into the hospital parking lot. He parked in a spot that wasn't legal, knowing he would just pay the ticket later. Money solved everything for Nathan. He turned off the engine. The silence rushed back in.
I'll wait here. You go up. Take as long as you need.
Amy looked at him. She saw a man who was patient, kind, and generous. She didn't see the man who had texted Gracie 10 minutes ago to release the next wave of rumors.
You're too good to us, Nathan.
She unbuckled her seatbelt. As she climbed out, helping Lindy down from the high seat, Nathan watched them. His fingers tapped a rhythm on the steering wheel. He was patient. He knew that too good was just the bait. The trap hadn't snapped shut yet, but the prey was already inside the cage. The loft above the barn had always been a place of sanctuary for the Heartland family. It was where Ty had lived, where Amy had fallen in love, where secrets were kept and dreams were hatched. Now, it was a hiding spot. Dex crouched behind a stack of Timothy bales, his phone pressed tight to his ear. The air was thick with the scent of dried grass and dust, a smell that usually brought comfort, but tonight felt suffocating. Below him, he could hear the faint sounds of the night watchman, a new hire. Nathan had insisted on paying for, making his rounds. Dex didn't trust the guy. He didn't trust anyone Nathan brought onto the property. He waited until the footsteps faded toward the east paddock before he dared to speak. She's losing it, Katie. I'm not saying that to be mean. On the other end of the line, Katie sat on the edge of her bed. Give me update. She's got me watching the Ridge Road for a mystery woman. She thinks there's a neighbor leaking financial data to the clients. A neighbor? There isn't anyone up there. I know that, but she won't listen. And Katie, she thinks the leak is coming from the inside. She asked me if Lou had access to the insurance files. There was a stunned silence on the line. The accusation hung in the air, toxic and absurd. She thinks Mom is doing this? To her own inheritance? To Grandpa's legacy? She's desperate. And when people are desperate, they lash out at the people they're supposed to trust. Especially when the guy holding her hand is whispering poison in her ear. Nathan, he's driving her everywhere. He's got her convinced he's the only lifeboat in the ocean. If I tell her he's the one drilling the holes in the hull, she'll definitely kick me out of here. And then there's no one left to watch her back. Katie gripped her phone. She felt a surge of maturity, a sudden hardening of her resolve. She wasn't just the kid anymore. She was the link. Keep watching, Dex. Do whatever she asks. Please. I know this shouldn't have involved you. Sorry for that. Don't be, Katie. I'm doing this in respect of Jack. He has helped me a lot, and what I'm doing is nothing compared to what he gave me. 1,000 miles away, in a small hotel room in Vancouver, Lou Fleming paced the floor. The room wasn't that luxurious. To Lou, it was a cell. The legal threats from the concerned investors, Nathan's shell companies, had been clear interference in Heartland's operations, while under investigation for financial mismanagement would result in immediate asset freezing. She had been sidelined by a masterful legal coup. Katie came to Lou.
Hey, did you eat lunch?
Yeah, my mom. There's something. Lou sank into the desk chair, her hands gripping the armrests. She looked tired. The power suits and the perfect makeup couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. She had built Heartland into an empire over the last decade. She had diversified, franchised, and secured its future, and in 2 weeks, she had watched from a distance as it all unraveled. Dex called. He says Amy is hunting for a saboteur. She thinks a neighbor is leaking the financial records to the clients. Lou let out a harsh, incredulous laugh.
A neighbor? Does she think Mrs. Bell is hacking the server? That's ridiculous. The only people with access to those records are me, the accountant, and
Her eyes narrowed.
Nathan, because she showed him. She showed him everything, didn't she?
She trusts him, Mom. She thinks he's saving us. But that's not the worst part. The fury that erupted in her wasn't a slow burn, it was an explosion. It was the rage of the responsible sister.
She thinks I did this, doesn't she?
Katie didn't answer. Lou understood it.
I am sitting in a hotel room because I am trying to save the franchise from the legal mess she ignored, and she thinks I'm the enemy. Because I'm not there holding her hand and telling her everything is going to be okay?
Mom, calm down. She's not thinking straight.
I am done with her being scared. We are all scared. Grandpa is lying in a hospital bed because of this stress. And instead of looking at the man sleeping in her house, the man with the shark smile who just happened to show up right before everything went to hell, she points the finger at me?
Lou stopped at the window, staring out at the indifferent city lights. Her reflection in the glass looked shattered.
She is destroying it, Katie. Years of work. The brand, the reputation. She's dismantling it brick by brick because she's too proud to admit she needs help and too blind to see she's being played.
So what do? We can't tell her. She won't listen to you. The anger was still there, but it had cooled into a hard, diamond-like resolve. She wiped a tear from her cheek, a tear of frustration, not sadness.
If she wants to play detective, let her. But we need to save the business in spite of her.
Lou closed her eyes. She felt a profound sense of isolation. She was the villain in Amy's story right now. The evil big sister. The saboteur. Fine, Lou whispered to the empty room. Paint me as the villain. But I'm going to be the villain who saves your ass, Amy, whether you like it or not. The round pen was usually a place of quiet, almost mystical communication. Today, it was a gym. Amy Fleming stood in the center, a lunge whip in her hand, working a rugged Roman-nosed gelding that looked like he had been built out of spare parts. His coat was rough, his mane was roached, and he had a scar running down his left flank. He wasn't a dressage prospect. He wasn't a six-figure jumper. He was a ranch horse with a biting problem and a bad attitude. Amy wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her glove. She looked exhausted, but it was a different kind of exhaustion than the hollow, weeping fatigue of the last few days. This was physical. This was the clean burn of muscle and focus. Dex leaned against the rail, watching her. He cleared his throat. He's moving better on the left lead. Less pinning of the ears. Amy didn't stop the horse. She kept him moving, her eyes locked on his hindquarters.
He's not mean. He's just defensive. Someone used a heavy hand on him.
She clicked her tongue, asking for a transition to a walk. The horse slowed, blowing hard, and turned a wary eye toward her. Amy softened her posture, coiling the whip.
Did you post the ad?
Yeah, Local classifieds, the feed store bulletin board, and the community Facebook page. Heartland. Back to basics. Training and rehab for working horses. No frills, fair rates. Amy nodded. It was a desperate pivot. The high-end clients were gone. Their empty stalls were gaping wounds in the budget. But Amy knew something the rumors didn't. Horses were horses. And in Alberta, there were always horses that needed fixing, even if their owners couldn't pay premium board.
Good. If we can fill 10 stalls with working stock, we can cover the feed bill. It won't pay the mortgage, and it won't pay the hospital, but it keeps the lights on.
Amy and Dex both turned toward the driveway. A battered Ford F350, caked in mud, was pulling a stock trailer that had seen better decades. It rattled and squeaked as it navigated the potholes Amy hadn't been able to afford to fill. It wasn't a luxury sedan. It wasn't a pristine horse van. It was the cavalry. The truck, parked near the barn. A man in a stained Cardiff jacket stepped out. It was Hank, a local cattle rancher who had known Jack for 40 years, but had never used Heartland services because they were too fancy. Hank tipped his hat, looking around the empty yard with a shrewd eye.
Heard you were taking in problem cases already, Amy.
Amy walked out of the round pen, leaving the gelding to catch his breath. She approached Hank, wiping her hands on her jeans. She felt a sudden surge of pride. This wasn't glamour. This was survival.
You heard right, Hank. What have you got?
Got a mare that won't load, and a colt that kicks like a mule. I can't afford your usual rates, but I can pay cash, and I can bring you a couple sides of beef for the freezer.
Amy didn't hesitate. A week ago, she might have referred him to a cheaper trainer. Today, the offer of cash and food felt like salvation.
Bring them out. The rate is flat fee. You supply the feed.
Hank grinned, a crooked expression that showed tobacco-stained teeth.
Deal.
Dex watched as Hank unloaded a skittish bay mare. He saw Amy step in, her movements fluid and confident. She took the lead rope. The mare reared slightly, testing her. Amy didn't flinch. She grounded herself, breathing out, and the mare settled, responding to the authority of her calm. It was a small moment. There were no ribbons. There was no applause. But as Amy led the mare into the barn that wasn't quite as empty anymore, Dex felt a shift in the air. He looked at his phone again. He typed a message to Katie. She's fighting back. It's working. 2 hours later, the barn sounded different. Amy stood in the tack room, looking at the small stack of cash Hank had handed her. It was greasy. It smelled of diesel. It wasn't enough to make a dent in the mountain of debt Lisa was hiding. But it was something. She felt a flicker of hope. It was fragile, like a candle flame in a windstorm. But it was there. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a trainer. She was doing what she was born to do. She put the cash in the lockbox and turned to the whiteboard schedule. She picked up a marker and wrote, Hank's Mare Session 1. The black ink stood out against the white surface. It was proof of life.
We can do this. We don't need them.
She didn't know that outside. The storm was gathering strength. She didn't know that this small victory was about to be used against her. She just knew that for the first time in a week, she didn't feel like crying. She felt like working, and work was the only cure she had left. The suite at the Hudson Grand Hotel was a world away from the dust and sweat of the Heartland barn. It smelled of white tea and expensive leather. The view from the floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic look at the town below the town. Nathan Price was slowly buying piece by piece. Nathan stood by the window, a tumbler of scotch in his hand. He wasn't drinking it. He was just holding it, watching the amber liquid catch the light. He looked annoyed. The savior act was exhausting, and Amy's stubbornness was proving to be a more formidable barrier than he had anticipated. The door to the adjoining room opened. Gracie walked in. She wasn't wearing her concerned neighbor disguise. She was wearing a silk robe looking every inch the bored, wealthy heiress she was playing. She held a tablet in one hand, scrolling through financial reports with a manicured finger. Certainly. Here's an expanded version of that exchange, adding more subtext and atmosphere. You look tense, brother. Nathan turned from the window, jaw clenched, eyes hard. He tried to mask the frustration etched across his features, but he couldn't quite manage it tonight. The city lights glimmered behind him, casting long, sharp shadows across the room. Gracie was perched at the bar, swirling her drink with a knowing smirk, watching him unravel piece by piece.
She's not taking it. I don't know when she'll sign it, or if she will ever sign the deal.
He let out a short, brittle laugh, shaking his head. The words tasted sour as he said them. Nathan prided himself on reading people, on closing even the toughest deals with a handshake and a smile. But Amy was different. Her stubbornness was like bedrock. Every tactic he'd used, every angle he'd tried, it all just slid off her, leaving him grasping at air. He could feel control slipping through his fingers, and it infuriated him. Nathan glanced back at Gracie, searching for reassurance, but finding only cool amusement in her eyes. The game wasn't over, but for the first time in a long while, he wasn't sure how it would end. Gracie laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. She tossed the tablet onto the velvet sofa. Working, please. I saw the report. A couple of rusted trucks and some hay burners from the locals. That's not revenue, Nathan. That's charity. It won't even cover the electricity bill for the indoor arena.
It's not about the money, Gracie. It's about the morale. As long as she feels like she's fighting back, she won't sign the papers. I offered her the bridge loan again today. She turned it down.
He took a sip of the scotch, the burn doing nothing to settle his irritation.
She's digging in. She's got that pioneer grit. It's annoying.
Gracie walked over to the wet bar. She picked up the crystal decanter and poured herself a drink, the glass clinking softly against the bottle. Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of the passage, deepening Gracie's tone and the tension in the scene. You're approaching this like a courtship, Nathan. You're trying to woo her into bankruptcy. Here, let me hold your hand while your house burns down. It's poetic, but it's slow. She set her glass down with a deliberate clink and turned to face him fully. Her posture relaxed, but her gaze razor-sharp. There was no warmth in her eyes, none of the polished concern she could so easily turn on for outsiders. Instead, there was only icy calculation. Gracie studied her brother for a moment, her lips curling into a faint, almost mocking smile, as if daring him to pretend this was anything but a ruthless game. The bank is ready to move. The hospital bills are piling up. Lisa is selling off her own stock just to keep the machines running. She pushed off from the bar, taking a few measured steps closer, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. Each word was precise, clinical, stripped of sentiment. She enjoyed this part, the pressure, the squeeze, the knowledge that every avenue of escape was closing for their prey. We are this close. She held up her thumb and forefinger, an inch apart, and let the gesture hang in the air between them, a silent reminder of how little stood between victory and defeat. Her voice dropped, almost conspiratorial. One wrong step, and Heartland is ours.
Lisa is the problem. As long as she's funneling money from Fairfield, Amy has a safety net.
Lisa is bleeding out. I checked the Fairfield accounts this morning. She's liquidating breeding rights at fire sale prices. She has maybe 3 weeks before she hits the wall, and when she does, Jack's care stops. Nathan looked at his sister, studying the sharp set of her jaw and the glint of calculation in her eyes. In that moment, he saw the unyielding ruthlessness that ran in their family blood, a trait honed over generations, sharpened by necessity and ambition. There was nothing sentimental in Gracie's gaze, no trace of doubt or hesitation. She radiated a cold efficiency that bordered on predatory, and Nathan recognized that same darkness in himself. It was ugly, this capacity for mercilessness, and sometimes he hated how natural it felt. But as he watched Gracie orchestrate the downfall of Heartland with surgical precision, he couldn't deny its effectiveness. In their world, empathy was a liability, and Gracie had always known how to cut straight to the bone.
Amy thinks she's winning because she filled 5 stalls with Bronx.
Exactly. It's a false hope, and false hope is the most dangerous thing for a person in her position. It makes them irrational. It makes them think they can swim when they're already underwater. Gracie took a sip of her drink, smiling over the rim of the glass. She's resisting because she thinks there's a way out. We just need to close the last door.
How?
You said she's hunting for the neighbor, right? The one spreading the rumors.
She's got the stable boy watching the road. She's paranoid.
Good. Paranoia makes people sloppy. Desperate people make significant mistakes, Nathan. They lash out. They accuse the wrong people. They alienate their allies. She walked over to him, placing a hand on his arm. It wasn't a comforting gesture. It was a transfer of ambition. Let her have her little victory with the ranch horses today. Let her feel safe. And then, tomorrow, we pull the rug. I have a meeting with the zoning commission. I think it's time they looked into the commercial zoning violations of running a rehab center without the proper permits. Nathan raised an eyebrow.
That's petty.
It's bureaucratic. It's slow. It's expensive. And it will shut down her back-to-basics plan. Nathan swirled his drink again. He looked out at the town. He imagined Amy in the barn right now, feeling proud of her hard day's work. He felt a pang of something not guilt, but perhaps regret that it had to be this way. But business was business, and he wanted Heartland.
Do it.
And the deal?
Have the lawyers draft the final purchase agreement. Not a loan, a buyout. When the zoning officer slaps that cease and desist on her gate, she'll sign. She won't have a choice.
Gracie clinked her glass against his. To Heartland. Or what's left of it. Nathan finished his drink in one swallow. He set the glass down hard on the windowsill.